Elaine's been away, so I don't think the ethics has really been moving anywhere anyway for the past few weeks. I've got one that's gone back in and I'm still waiting for it. So hopefully you'll get it in and it'll get back quickly now that she'll be back on Monday. So, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Whose schedule? Whose schedule are you behind? Are you behind your own schedule, or are you being what is expected of you? Mm-hmm.
I mean, in terms of people doing their PhDs, often the first semester of the second year is spent pretty much getting ethical approval. That's in my experience. So data collection often doesn't start till the second semester of the second year, a lot of the time. Yeah. Well, no, it won't take 2 months now. It's only they're only looking at the amendments to check that you've done the things that they asked you to do. Okay, so they will look and they'll say, okay, right, so we said, does it need sponsorship? Right, no, they've checked, it doesn't need sponsorship, tick. You know, we said, put a bit about data management into your participant information form. Yes, it's done. Okay, you know, and so really it is about, if you've done what they've asked you to do. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's okay. How are you, Mark?
I'm okay, thank you. It's okay.
Is it not? Okay. Okay, well, we can have a look at that towards the end. We need to make sure we've got time for that. So I would say don't panic. I think you should have your ethical approval. I would have said probably by the end of this month. And what I wonder if it's maybe useful for us to talk about what other preparations, so you know, so that then when you get your ethical approval, you're ready to go. What other preparations do you need to do? What have you been doing in terms of, you know, putting your survey measures online, or talk us through where you're up to with some of the preparations. Well, no, the actual practical doing. So you are, you know, you've designed your research, you're applying for ethics, and now we're getting in towards the doing of it. So what you want to do is use the time where you're waiting for your ethical approval to get everything ready to go. So I suppose I'm wondering, for instance, your measures, you've got all of them now. Yeah. Have you put them into, what are you going to use? Is it Qualtrics? Yeah. So have you put them into Qualtrics? Have you done all of that? Right. Okay. Right. Okay. So you're starting to, because that will take a bit of time to put all of those in and design it all so that then it works. And once you've done that, do you want to maybe send the link to, oh, it'll be in Chinese. There's no point in sending the link to us. I don't think there's any point in sending us a Chinese version, because unless Mark has linguistic skills that I don't know, then he'll not be able to read it either.
Nope.
Well, I'm not sure if you need to do an English version online. Oscar, don't make more work for yourself than you need. You're doing your research in Chinese, yes? Chinese language, yeah. So put your online, make it in the language that you're needing to use. The reason I was saying send it to us was I thought it would be good to pilot it just to check that it's all working once you've done it. So maybe you might have a couple of colleagues or a couple of people you might send it to, just for the functional bit of when I go in and I get into it, I can look through all the questions, it's working properly, so that you've kind of got that sense before you're then sending it out, the link out, because it would be a bit of a nightmare to send a link out and then discover that actually when people go into your survey, it's not somehow formatting or coming through the way you want it to. Do you have a couple of friends or colleagues that you could ask to just do that for you? Be like test people for it? Okay. Are the versions that you have got of all of the measures, are they all in Chinese already? Yeah, so you don't need a translator, because the translator would have been used in the development of the versions, the Chinese versions. So now you don't need to worry about that translation, because somebody else has done that for you. You just need to, yeah. To be, you know, you're doing it in your native language. If I write the introductory part on a survey, nobody would ever think of asking me to get a translator in to check that I'd used good English. They might suggest I proofread it, but you know, so you need to, I think you need to take a deep breath, Oscar, and you need to trust yourself a little bit with all of this, okay? And that the translator bit would only have really come in where you had to do that translation of a measure. You've not had to do that. So the other bits, the writing of the introductory bits and the writing of the participant information sheet and everything like that.
I can hear you, yes. No.
Oh.
I think we just got frozen.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? I don't know what's going on. Oh, this doesn't bode well for this 5 later if I keep going in and out. What I was just saying was you just need to take a breath and just trust yourself a bit. And I know that you're doing it in Chinese. We would do it in English, but this English is our native language. Chinese is you're a native speaker of Chinese. So trust yourself. Okay. Okay. So yeah, so your job is to write that bit at the beginning and to make sure that the participant information is there and to put in the questions that are already in the right language into Qualtrics. Yeah, okay. Right. And then to send it to a couple of friends and just say, can you check that you can get into the survey? Can you check that the instructions make sense to you? And can you check that when you actually go to do the survey, it works? And it doesn't matter what answers they put in, just tell them to put in any answers just so they can work their way through the survey. Yeah. Yeah, because I think that's your next big thing to do, isn't it? So that it's ready. Because the other big thing that people are usually doing at this point as well, Oscar, is thinking about, you know, they're busy maybe doing some things to try and access and arrange the access of their population. And so, but you're accessing people through online means, so you don't have to go meet people to arrange to, you know, to get them to disseminate information or anything, do you? You've got that strategy all set up. Right. Yeah. So I think the Qualtrics thing is the main thing that you need to be doing. And are you going to put on Oh, right. No, you would normally just kind of then think, okay, so what else do I need to do to kind of get it out there? So are there other channels I can use, maybe Twitter, or I don't know, do you use Twitter across in Macau? No, because there will be some things that we would go to, because Twitter is one of the key social media actually for getting links for surveys out nowadays. But so you would tend to just go back and think, okay, so I'd give it another push. It's different to, so if you had specific people that you were going to who'd identified interest and you'd said, okay, well, you participate, and then they didn't send it to you, and then you went back and you said, I'm just reminding you to participate. You could only then do that twice really before it becomes harassment. But because it's not specific people, it's just putting it out there into the population and hoping that people will pick it up, then it's different. So you can keep just putting it out there and keep a note of the kind of the statistics for, you know, how well different platforms are working for you as well, because that's obviously important for writing this up in terms of what got most hits, if you like, or most views. If it's possible to track that, I don't know. Some things it's possible to track these things, others it isn't.
So Oscar, can I ask you a question? It seems like what we're doing is we're probably problem solving hypotheticals that haven't happened yet. But I think it would be a better use of your time to focus on the actual things that you need to do, and not to imagine scenarios and try to prepare for the problems. Because, for example, like your question about if I've fallen behind, well, it's almost like, well, what difference does it make? I mean, you are where you are right now. It doesn't matter if you've fallen behind. It's you. What would you do differently? If we said you've fallen behind, Oscar, what would you do differently? Would you work harder? Okay. Well, let me put it this way. I think you should run at the speed that you need to get this project done, but don't run at a panicked level. And I think, it's almost like what we've spent some time doing here is focusing on the things that you're afraid of happening. That you're afraid that you might be running late. You're afraid, what if you don't get enough people? And I just think that we need to have a bit more faith that this is going to work out. I think we need to just kind of assume that it will work. And if it doesn't, there's that expression that we say where we cross that bridge when we come to it. It's like we will deal with that if that happens. Right now, we need to assume that you will get the participants that you need. When you decided to change your research design to something that would require a larger sample, that was a decision that was made. And one of the things that we cautioned you about was, well, this is going to take a lot of people to when we calculate effect sizes and so on. So we can't keep kind of changing it. We have to sort of just go with the style that you have. If you don't get the participant numbers that you need to be able to create the effect size that you need when you're doing your calculations, well, then we're going to have to think about a different way to analyze the data. Really, we're going to have to think of a different kind of approach. But right now we've got the ethics. You're just about to submit it here. We just need to kind of stay consistent with one plan. We can't switch plans over and think of alternatives yet. Let's just give this a try. I just think you need to run as fast as you can in collecting data and getting participants, and let's see what happens. The thing about a PhD is that you have time to adjust and adapt. One thing I would just add about your recruitment strategies, though, is that stay consistent with what you state you're going to do in your ethics proposal. So don't add in a bunch of brand new different kinds of strategies. Make sure your ethics proposal captures the kind of things that you would utilize to recruit participants, and keep trying that. If we need to change a different strategy, then we just make an amendment to the ethics proposal and say, well, actually now we want to do this, and we want to make a specific change. But these are all changes that happen sort of along the way. And so I think we just need to kind of be a bit adaptable and open to change if we need to. But we don't know if we need to make those changes yet until we see how successful it is. Yes. So let's see.
Yep, exactly. I think
so let's see, Oscar, if we get sufficient.
Yeah. Whenever you start recruiting, whenever you start a piece of research, even the most experienced researchers have no idea really how many people they're going to manage to get to participate. And research is a funny mixture of very theoretical stuff and very practical stuff. You're getting into the very practical stuff now, and you need to, as Mark says, we need to stick to the plan. The plan has been developed and it's the best plan for what you want to do. and for the minute. And then it's like anything, you know, anything that we do, we can make plans, but we can get part way through and then suddenly something happens and we have to sort of be flexible and change those plans so we can still kind of have the same outcome. And research is the same. When you read research, it always sounds as if it was just dead straightforward and, you know, somebody planned the research, they designed it, they recruited all these people, they did the analysis and they present it to you. What we don't see in the papers is all of the decision making and the problem solving and those kind of skills that are used when something happens that we don't expect. But we would never start our practical aspect of our research if we got too tied up in what might happen and how we might resolve it. So I know it's really hard, but Mark is absolutely right. You need to kind of sit with the present, and the present is we're just about to get ethics. You need to put your measures into Qualtrics, and you need to be ready with your participant information and your information materials to put them out through the various platforms that you're going to use as soon as you get your ethical approval. Okay, and that's where we're at. And then it's about just seeing, it's about keeping pushing those messages out, seeing where you're getting best responses. And it will take some time to recruit people. So, and you know, if it's difficult, then we have a discussion and a rethink, and we think, what else could we use? But not until then. Okay. Okay. So that you're going. I'm going to make you go and practice some mindfulness, I think, to stay in the present with it. Okay. And not get running ahead of where we're already at. Yeah, and you know, while you're waiting for these things, you can also do more theoretical reading and really think about writing. Say, starting to write you could start to write your literature review or your methods chapter or something like that. So you're actually using some of the time where you're waiting for your participants to complete the questionnaires to then be writing your thesis, writing parts of your thesis. So that's the best use of time. So whilst it might be interesting to do lots of reading about different ways to calculate sample size, I think probably the better thing to do once you've kind of, basically it's useful to know that there are lots of ways to do things, and in research there are also always lots of ways to do things, and you choose the best way that's for your project. But I think I would suggest that you make a plan about doing some writing for your thesis. So whether you want to go back and revisit the literature and begin to develop your literature review. But I think the first thing that might be useful to do before you even start doing that would be to make up a kind of a detailed contents page, so that we have a list of how you think the thesis is going to be broken down into chapters, what each of those chapters will focus on, and a kind of a bit of detail about, you know, what will go in there. So look at the things you've written already. So you've got quite a lot of writing, and think, so where would that bit go? So there's some of the writing from your first year report you will develop and put into your literature chapter, for instance. There's some of the writing that would go into your methodology chapter. And so I think another good job to do whilst we're doing a lot of waiting, because this period is a lot of waiting, is to make up that detailed contents page so you can start to then think, okay, so I'm going to start writing this chapter or that chapter, and start to do some of that alongside this in the periods where you're not actively doing the data collection or the, you know, particularly because doing the data collection at this point really is about sending things out, so, and then waiting. So then you can do that before we get to the point of analysing. Okay. So send us the detailed contents page and we can comment back, and then you can have you can start on that. Have you looked at any theses before, PhD theses? Other people's PhD theses, yeah. Just randomly. It might be worth going and looking for, because our library obviously has all of the PhD theses that are done by Edinburgh University students. And I think most of them now are digitally lodged in there. It used to be you had to go in and go up to the 5th floor in the library and read the paper copy. So it's probably worth looking and just see if you can find a couple that are doing a similar, not a similar topic, but a similar kind of approach. So the mixed methods approach, where they've got the quant, then the qual, and look at how they're written. Okay, because what I want you to think about is how they're structured and how people put them together to give you a sense of what kinds of things you need to put in each kind of chapter, and the flow of the chapters. Okay. Yeah. So, oh, totally. Yeah. So just have a look and see how people have written them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're feeling like you've got a big long to-do list now. Yeah. Well, it was supposed to be every 3 weeks. It was me that made a mess of that one, was it not, last week, because I couldn't change. We didn't manage to change it. So it should be every 3 weeks, Oscar. Mark scheduled them in for every 3 weeks, didn't you?
Yeah, Oscar, I was wondering, we've had this a few times where, you know, like it seems like you have created a meeting and we have already meetings scheduled in Teams, and I'm just wondering, when you go into Teams, are you able to see the calendar? And you can see when all of our meetings are scheduled, right? So that's the answer to your question of what. So we have it scheduled so that it repeats every 3 weeks, and but let's be clear about something too, Oscar, is that's the plan. So the plan is that we have it every 3 weeks, but there will be times, you know, where if you know, if Rosie's unavailable, or if I'm unavailable, or if you are unavailable, that we won't meet at certain times, and we will have to adjust it and make, you know, a different meeting time. So it's kind of like our goal, our hope is that we will meet every 3 weeks, and that's what's scheduled in Teams. But there might be times where we have to adapt that, which is what we had to do last week, right? So that's why we're meeting this week instead of last week. So that's no problem. But I also hear you saying that Fridays are not something that is working for you. So can you give us an idea of what would work for you?
Uh-huh. Well, I can do that, interestingly. So I don't know what it's like for you, Mark, though. Are you teaching, or have you got other things scheduled in generally then?
So what's a bit challenging is that I basically do most of my supervision on Thursdays and Fridays. And so what happens, I've got one person scheduled one week and another person scheduled. So I have people that are typically scheduled at 11 o'clock on Thursdays, but then, that just depends on which week it falls on. If we were doing a monthly thing, that I could guarantee that I would always be available the third Thursday at 11 or the fourth Thursday at 11. But because we're doing every 3 weeks, it kind of falls in a different time of the month each month. So unfortunately, I probably couldn't commit to 11 o'clock because I wouldn't be able to consistently be there, because sometimes I'll have other supervision meetings at 11. Because the first Thursday of the month I have a supervision meeting, the second Thursday of the month I have a supervision meeting, and then the other 2 Thursdays I'm free. So do you see what I'm saying? It's it becomes a bit challenging to have something on a 3 weekly basis. Wednesday, I don't have hardly any time. Thursday, but like Thursday at 10 o'clock would work, or Thursday at 12 o'clock. I mean, those are times that I could for sure do. But it's just, yeah.
I can't do 10 o'clock though on a Thursday because I have a research meeting every week on a Thursday at 10. I mean, 12 o'clock, if we were doing 12 o'clock, Oscar, what time of day is that for you? Is that 7 o'clock at night? Yeah. So 12 o'clock might be okay on a Thursday. So 12 o'clock for us, so it'd be 7 o'clock for you, is it? Oh, is it? Are you 8 hours ahead of us? What time is it just now? Yes, it's eight hours, isn't it? Mm. I mean, I guess the other option with the 11 o'clock slot is that every so often Mark isn't available and we just meet with me, and we could at least then have, because I guess that would be 2 supervision sessions, unfortunately, that then you could be available for. Yeah.
Well, why don't we do that? Why don't we? I'll change it in Teams again to be on Thursdays at 11, and then we'll just try to be adaptable at the times where there might be a conflict. But I think it should be okay. Yeah. Exactly. Let's give it a try.
So actually the next supervision meeting should be on the 26th. So if we made it Thursday the 25th, that's the last Thursday, Mark. So at least that first one, one you should be able to be at. And then, yeah, I'm in my very small tired brain, I'm trying to work out how often every third, whether it goes consecutively to weeks that you make, and I can't do that at this time in the morning.
No problem. I'll have a look and see here.
Yeah.
Okay. So anything? Yeah. Because I just talked to you that I heard a news yesterday about the strike in the UK, and Cambridge is going to join the strike. So do you think Edinburgh will also join the strike?
Yeah. Edinburgh, we have balloted. So all of the universities that were eligible to ballot, so there are about 37 universities across the UK who have the University and Colleges Union as one of their unions and who are in dispute with their employers. Balloted, and Edinburgh balloted for strike action and action short of a strike. So there will be strikes.
Okay.
I will tell you now that if there are strikes, I will be out on strike because I have supported all of the strike actions so far. So we would, that might throw another bit of a googly into, if it falls on a Thursday, we're supposed to have supervision, we might think about trying to work around that. Not that that's really what you're supposed to do when you're on strike, but actually I think there are some things that they're always worth rearranging. Okay, but don't worry about it. It's never a strike for every day of the week. Okay, so we were out on strike before the pandemic for a couple of years in a row, and usually it's 1 day a week, then 2 days, then 3 days, and then I think the last week's usually 4 days. But it would never be such that they strike all week, so that we wouldn't be able to have supervision, basically. So don't you worry about that. I think you've got enough things to be doing without worrying about us being on strike.
Yes.
But we would make sure that you're okay.
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 No, I'm not worried. I'm just a little bit curious because I watched the news yesterday on TV. On our television. Okay.
Well, we're on strike about fair pay, fair working conditions, better working conditions for colleagues, and also about our pensions, which there's been a big dispute about the value of the pension pot, and so there's quite a number of issues that have arisen in higher education and over the past however many years that we've been fighting on, and the unions are quite strong here. I don't know what the situation. I'm not sure that you necessarily maybe have unions in Macau, but the unions, you do?
Yeah, in every industry we got union.
Right. Okay.
So the union will also fight the right for us as well. But because Macau is a very conservative city, so people won't say anything actually. Basically, even though we are very disadvantaged, on something, but we will not speak out, so it's very conservative actually.
Yeah. So that's very challenging, isn't it? The unions in higher education have been really quite strong and quite vocal. I'm also a nurse, and unions in nursing are not. So nurses do tend to be quite disadvantaged because the unions have been not very strong and they don't go on strike.
I see. Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. So I heard that you need to leave a bit earlier today, right? You told me.
I do. Yes, because I'm going now to examine a PhD. So I'll just go just now, if that's okay.
Yes, I think.
Well, it sounds like you've got what you need to do, Oscar. Anyways, so
yes.
We'll just plan on meeting the next Thursday that we can at 11 o'clock.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Really?
Cheers.
Okay.
Thanks, Oscar.
Thank you. Bye, Mark.
Bye-bye.
Bye.